Hi, everybody. This is Andrea Paquette. I am president and co-founder of Stigma-Free Mental Health Society, and I welcome all of you to our Stigma-Free Voices podcast. I'm so excited today to have our two guests, the first time we've ever had two guests at once, which is super exciting. So we have Brian here and Punch. So first, Brian, I was wondering if you could just say a quick hello and where you're tuning in from.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Andrea. I am from Edmonton, Alberta.
Awesome.
And I'm Punch Jackson, and I'm from snowy Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit snowy in Saskatchewan as well. I'm tuning in from Moose Jaw. Yeah, loving the Saskatchewan, loving the people, and glad to have you guys from Alberta as well. So I thought we would just start off today. I could go through your bios. And Punch, I'm going to start with you. And I am super excited to share your bio. I think it's so impressive and cool. So let's get going. Punch brings over 3 decades of experience with the Alberta Public Service, along with earlier work in outdoor education and inclusive recreation. Since retiring, he has dedicated the past 17 years to developing men's sheds across Alberta, raising awareness, building community partnerships, and advocating for men's health. Thanks to his efforts, the province now has 49 men's sheds with a vision to grow to 120 plus by 2030. He is currently focused on strengthening a sustainable support network to help communities across Alberta build and maintain thriving men's sheds. Welcome, Punch. And I just so excited to get into all of this in a moment. But first, I would like to read Brian's bio. And this is equally impressive. So Brian is the Outreach and Member Services Lead for Men's Sheds Canada, where he supports men in starting and sustaining men's sheds in their communities. A former public servant and educator, he draws on firsthand experience from founding a shed in Edmonton. Brian is passionate about fostering connection and purpose among men navigating life's transitions. So, as a proud father and grandfather, he is committed to helping build stronger, more supportive communities. So, thank you so much to both of you for being here to talk about men's sheds, your advocacy, and your passion for men's health and for mental health. And I thought a way to kick off the conversation would be to ask Punch to start. So, how would you describe your role with the Alberta's Men's Sheds Association? So, let's hear a little bit about your role.
Well, first of all, the Alberta Men's Shed Association is a volunteer-based organization at the present time. We do not have any full-time paid staff, so where the onus falls on the volunteers. My job, I guess, is to try and keep everybody focused on what we call the 4 pillars of Alberta Men's Shed Association, and that's outreach and creating awareness, trying to make sure that everyone understands what a men's shed is. And we are in the business of starting new sheds across Alberta and supporting the existing sheds. And then when we graduate from being rambunctious teenagers to being adults, that's when we have to make sure that our organization is credible and sustainable, and that's it's a tall order. The main function that we have for myself is building relationships with other organizations and trying to increase the number of voices that are talking shed. Mm-hmm. The usual thing of responding to requests. That's another little task that falls to me. But generally, that's the range of things that I'm involved in with the association.
Great. And how about the concept of exactly what a men's shed is? Brian, can you tell me more about that in some detail?
Well, sure. It's I'll just say about Men's Sheds Canada. We're a national organization. We're a charity, and we're devoted. Our goal is not exactly well. We have we would like to see 1,000 sheds in Canada, but the idea is that every man in Canada who wants access to a men's shed can have access to a men's shed. That's the real goal. And so there's no reason we can't have thousands of men's sheds in Canada. And there are thousands around the world right now, 3,500, I believe. So, but what is a men's shed? It's not a shed. That term is from Australia and also Newfoundland. It's where where guys meet. It's a gathering place. So it's really a gathering place where men get together, someone to talk to, something to do, somewhere to go. And that's it. It's not a shed. Now, there's the very occasional guys who build a shed, but they break that rule. But we're not about the building. We're about the guys in it. So a shed is comprised of the number of guys, whether it's 5 or whether it's 50 or 150. That's the men's shed.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so, Brian, just building on that a little bit, where did this men's shed movement begin? Like, what inspired its creation in the first place?
Well, it's generally accepted about 30 years ago. It started in Australia. And somebody, it's probably a woman. I mean, that's the one story, is that a woman was designing a whole bunch of programs for seniors and older folks in their communities. And the women were always showing up and the men not. Sometimes they were sitting in their cars waiting for the women to finish and come back. I think, the story is that she went out and said, why the heck don't you guys do something? Go out in the shed and do something. And they did. And they enjoyed it, and they never stopped. And now there's more than 1,000 sheds in Australia. As I said, there's 3,000 around the world. And in Canada here, a guy named Doug Mackey, about 15 years ago, was reading about this, or his daughter gave him information about it, something like that. Again, as a woman who kind of started us off, gave him the information, said, he said, this is a great idea. Somebody should do something. She said, well, why don't you do something? And he started the first shed. It's called Woodhaven. It's in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I visited there 2 weeks ago. And wonderful. I walked into a room where there was almost 100 guys playing cribbage. The noise was huge, but 100 guys who were playing cribbage, and then they broke up and they went to a science discussion and a history discussion. But that shed started by doing some art. This was 15 years ago. They started doing some artwork because somebody had an interest in doing old style printing. Then they fixed, they were in a church, and the church said, well, we need our stained glass window fixed. So they fixed that. And then they expanded into music, and they started music clubs, and they started a history club. They do so many activities, but it all just started with a few guys getting together. And that's the way men's sheds start across Canada.
Yeah. And I love that about the activities and what men are doing, connecting, the connection and the mental health piece. It just fits in so nicely when men can get together and build or do, right? So that's really what I'm hearing. And Punch, I was curious, men's sheds are intentionally designed for men. So why is that? And what draws men to join men's sheds?
Men joining men's sheds. I think they could be struggling with retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Brian's using a new phrase, and I love it, and it's called transition. So there's men that are transitioning from the workforce into retirement, and they get to retirement and they find out, oops, I thought I was going to play golf all the time. Now I'm not so sure. And they struggle a bit, and they look for something. They look because when they left work, they left a lot of their friends behind, and their friendship circle has either disappeared or shrunk tremendously. So they're looking for connection. So they look around and they find something, they find the men's shed, and they find another group of men, and many of them would have similar interests to that individual. They could be men that are moving from the military, which was maybe was a harsh environment, and they're moving into the community, and they are going through another transition process. So they're trying to find a calmer environment, again, finding new friends. It could be a transition for somebody moving from Moose Jaw to Lethbridge, and they have no friends in Lethbridge, and so they look around and they find a men's shed. And again, it's a comfortable place. It's a welcoming place. It's men doing things for the community. It could be any number of situations. One that's popped up, and it's when men lose their wives, and they struggle with that. They've been married for 50 years or 60 years, and all of a sudden they have no partner, and they look around for some place that is calming to them, respectful, understands the issue that they're having, and they gravitate to that. And many sheds across the country have that component built in. So those are some of the reasons for men moving. Did you want me to talk about activities?
I would love that if you wanted to add to that, for sure.
Hey, Brian, you can jump in here too when I'm stumbling. There's a huge range of activities within a shed. And certainly we've got the main focus, or the one that sort of gets the glory, is the woodworking group. And they are doing everything with wood that's possible. But the projects are not for themselves. The projects that they get working on are usually for somebody else, for someone in the community. So the guys have been asked to build benches. They have buddy benches that are used in schools for kids that are being bullied. They're building benches for community gardens. Women build these fantastic community gardens, but they just haven't got a bench or benches for them to sit around and share their stories. They've built picnic tables for transitional housing units. They have refurbished bicycles. We have a shed in Calgary, and they have refurbished over 1,000 bikes. And those bikes are for young kids who haven't had a bike, or even adults who have not had a bike. The fellows in Olds have added a component to that, and they have a trading program. So kids can bring their bike when they've outgrown it, and they can trade it in for a bigger bike. So that's a neat program. But there's also guys who could be already into their 80s, and they'll shake their finger at me and say, "Punch, we're not doing power tools." And we discover what they are doing is puzzles. They have a big, huge table, and there's 6 or 8 guys around the table, and they're working on these kabillion piece puzzles. And when I went in and saw this, my eyes rolled. And the fellow at the table, 85 years old, looks up at me, shakes his finger at me, and says, "Young man, you don't understand what happens around this table." And what he was referring to was the conversation. The guys are all sitting shoulder to shoulder. And that's part of the mantra for men's sheds is women talk face to face, and men talk shoulder to shoulder. So those are some of the things. Brian, have you got some other ones you want to add in?
Well, yeah, I'd say that, we often joke that the most important tool in the shed is the coffee pot. In my shed, we get around to talking first, catching up, because what happened in the last week, it's like having a second family, and we want to know how things are going, because that's the really important part of the shed is congregating and talking to each other. So the coffee pot first, then we get into the projects, and they can be like Punch said. If I can generalize, men like working with their hands. So we like to fix things or build things or move things or help with stuff. And when we're moving, and we call it shoulder to shoulder, while we're doing that, we tend to talk with each other a little bit more than maybe women who talk face to face very easily. Me, I talk well when I'm doing something, and we start to share with each other. And that's the really important part about the men's shed is, yeah, the activities are good. And yeah, we tend to focus on our communities because we are community based. That's the secret of a shed is you can walk or drive to your shed. It's in the community. Don't have to drive an hour to get to it. And we do stuff in our community, and the community gives us great feedback. They love having us. Now that we're in our community center, they could never do without us. They'd rather have us guys come over and fix a tap instead of hiring or calling for a plumber to come. Mm-hmm. And then, by the way, when we fix the tap, we show one of the young guys how to fix a tap. That's the mentorship that happens. In my shed, the oldest guy is 95. His name is Ed, and he was one of the first members. The youngest are in their teens. They bring their dads. And the young guys want to learn how to do some of this stuff. And they're just so excited to learn that they could fix a tap, or they can even learn how to paint a wall, or all those kinds of things. So the kind of intergenerational work that that's what we just love. Maybe it's the grandpa in us, but we love to teach young guys and empower them to, get engaged in the world rather than be on the screen full time. Mm-hmm. So lots of activities. There's 200 sheds in Canada now. Each one is different, but a lot of us we like to fix or repair things or build things. It's just in our nature, and we do it together. And that's the really important thing is we're doing all this together. These activities, the outputs are for the community, but it's also the input. It's for us feeling good about what we're doing. And then our families happen to notice that we're happier. We're taking care of ourselves. We're eating properly, and we're looking forward to the next week's shed already. And so that's the magic of the shed is we get together maybe because we started lonely or we wanted to do something, but we end up having a lot of fun. And a new family of friends.
Amazing.
This past week, Brian's shed had a kind of an emotional experience because they were at a school, and they were invited for the quote grand opening of the mud kitchen, and the mud kitchen was something that was built for preschoolers. Pre-K kids. And so when they're standing around and they're watching these kids, and these kids are playing at the mud kitchen, and they're standing beside each other talking, and the teacher leans over to one of the shedders and says, "It's really neat to see those autistic kids talking shoulder to shoulder." And so the shed guy turns to her and says, "Just like a shed." But it was they didn't know that kitchen was being built for kids with autism, and it was a real stimulating thing for those kids.
Yeah. Well, it seems amazing that it's such it seems like everyone in the community can play a role. Different people could benefit beyond just the men themselves. But I was wondering, what role do women play? And I know you touched on this, Brian, but a little bit more what role women can play in supporting men's sheds, and why is this support important? Brian, why don't we start with you?
Well, sure. So we have a lot of community agencies who refer men to men's sheds, and those, whether it's the volunteer sector or the health sector, the mental health sector, whatever you want to look, it's mostly women in those sectors. So it's very apparent to them, though they design programs, the women are showing up and the men aren't. So they send men to a men's shed. It's called social prescribing, but it doesn't really matter. They just know, and medical professionals, they know that the men need to be talking to other men to feel better. So most of those are women, and they send men to our sheds. But also, whenever I talk, I do a lot of outreach. And at least half or might be more of my audience is women. And after I'm finished, they say, "My dad needs a men's shed," or "My son needs," or my brother, they know men in their world that are isolated and stay in that way. We don't ask for directions very easily. We don't ask for help. And so we sit and tough it out. And yet they see that, man, if they could just talk to some other guys, they'd probably be happier. And it's true. So women are our biggest advocates. They send the men that they care about. They also take care of some of the details. They're happy they'll, in some cases, to get things started, they'll put the coffee on, they'll open the door, but eventually we take that over. But a lot of the agencies that Punch has worked with in family and community support services across Alberta, for example, lots of women there, and they attend our conferences, they get excited, and that's what they want to see happening in their communities with their guys. So they care enough to help us create sheds in the communities in Alberta, and the same thing I'm finding in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. There's so many women there who say, yeah, we should have more men's sheds. So they support us in many ways.
Over the last 15 years, we've had a woman working with me, and when she first joined us, she said, "You guys are too slow. You're too slow." And she went out and started 3 sheds, and it was just amazing. The things that she taught us about helping to get sheds started. So women play an incredible role in being advocates for men's sheds.
There's one other aspect that just came. I was in Newfoundland recently doing an outreach, and one of the women shared that they feel happy sending their husbands to a men's only group. Nothing terrible. He's not going to get into any trouble there. It's just one little other tiny aspect of it. But it's across the country, it's pretty much the same answer. The women realize that their men need a men's shed, so they'd like to see one in every community. Yep.
All right. I love it. Yes. Supporting from Stigma-Free Mental Health Society and myself personally, I see great worth and value in men's sheds. And I'm so grateful for this movement. And we know that loneliness can be it's a growing issue. And as you were mentioning, some of the men that are going through life's transitions, losing their wives. So we see this. And I was just curious about peer support within a men's shed, and how does peer support help address loneliness? So Brian, do you want to go first, and then Punch if you want to add anything?
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, okay. I retired some time ago, did nothing for a while, but really did not. I thought that was going to be great, but it wasn't. And I lost my day family, literally. So that the whole loneliness aspect is challenging for lots of us. And when so how does peer support help? Well, I tend to think when I sit by myself, I sit and stew about all my life's issues. And I think I'm the only one who's got them, and it wears me down. When I go into a group and I start talking about, because I'm recently divorced at my age, and I'm in my 70s. And I say, it's like I lost half of me. And other guys say, yep, I know what you mean. All of a sudden the weight is about half. Like other guys, I'm not alone. And that's the peer support that other guys can say, yeah, let's talk about it. And so I realized that other men have gone through this. And then I'm available to help other men who are going through this, because lots of men are unfortunately suffering either loss of either widowhood or divorce. So there's men, as we talk about it and share our stories, well, it normalizes it. We're just like other guys who've gone through this. And the same with other transitions that we've gone through, whether it's health or medical. I can't do all the physical things I want to do anymore, but I keep it to myself. But as soon as I start talking about that, other guys pop up and say, yeah, man, I wish I can't ski anymore, and I just loved it. Or whatever it is they lost, that peer support looks like I am no longer alone. I'm normal. I'm just a guy in my life transition, and there's other guys to help me through. That connection is so powerful compared to me sitting here in my basement thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm depressed. It's and I'm not necessarily depressed. I'm just kind of sad or not knowing what I can do. There's other guys who are in the very similar positions, and when we talk about that, it's like a bonding. It's like we're together in this, and that's what community is about, of course. And so that's about positive mental health. I feel so much happier knowing other guys know about me, but just by sharing it, other guys know my challenges and they have the same. I feel better. They actually feel better that I shared it. That's the value of peer support. It's a group of guys becomes a positive force, not only internally supporting each other. If somebody doesn't show up 1 week, we wonder why. If he doesn't show up 2 weeks, we phone him. Mm-hmm. Like we become a support group. And because we care. There's no rules about it. But whenever some people care about us, then we're valued and feel valued. Then we start taking care of ourselves, and we want to give back to the community out of gratitude. So it's like a snowball thing. But it's just the simple value of peer support is huge. And
I think that there's situations too where the situation may be this is not going to be the right word, not normal. Okay, so a man who's in his mid-50s has been struggling his entire life because he has not come out as being gay. Well, we have situations where that has happened in the shed. And the quote that he said when he told us his story was, I felt safe. I felt accepted. I had a reason to get up in the morning again. Mm-hmm. And I think being accepted when you are suffering from a psychological disorder of some sort, and some guys have got more than one, and then you have situations where maybe fellows are in recovery and they feel safe. They feel that they have a safety net around them. We have a shed where an individual was diagnosed with dementia. The shed just formed a net around him, and he didn't have a family to support him, but they provided that support net for him, and they'll be with him through the process. So these things, they're an antidote to loneliness, and I mean, they take so many different. There's so many different stories. We've collected stories in Alberta. We have 52 different stories of guys in sheds, and each one of them is unique. And I'm sure that they would have threads that have the word loneliness, or they would have the word accepted or safe. Changed my life is another phrase. And then, as we've heard many, many times, the shed saved my life. And that's has huge impact too.
Can I add another piece to this? And that is that not all men who come to men's sheds are needy or lonely or isolated or depressed. Some men just have the spare time and the energy and maybe even the leadership qualities to want to start a shed and create that space for other men. They might have been, for example, farmers who have to be a one-man show, or they run the show literally all their lives and they finally retired. Well, they're not depressed, but they might have a whole lot to give back. Like they might be able to start a shed and bring in the other guys who are having some trouble adjusting to this transition. So we always need a spark plug or two to run a shed and put the coffee pot on and welcome guys in the door. And that's how sheds start. So you don't have to wait till you're depressed or feel like before you start a men's shed. If there isn't one in your community and you got the time, we need you. We need good men to start sheds and keep this support other guys in your community. So there's some leadership aspects in starting a shed, and guys who've been working on their own all their lives have already had this built in. That leadership is built in.
Yeah. So thinking of community groups and service organizations and things like that, how is men's sheds different or unique to other community groups or service organizations? Can there be some synergies, or what do you think about that, Brian?
Well, there's some great groups out there. Rotary Club, I'll just use an example. One of our partners. We don't replace Rotary Club, but they have quite a structure, a hierarchy. Let's say some expectations built into how if you're accepted into Rotary. In men's sheds, it's a peer support group. We're if you're a man and you walk in the door, you're welcome. So it's a flat organization. We don't care whether about your socioeconomic status, your race, religion, color, beliefs. My shed has an unemployed roofer in it and a working doctor, a guy who is busy 5-6 days a week. He comes in just to decompress, just be with other guys without expectations. It's flat, and there's no hierarchy. So, and it's a drop-in. You can drop in anytime. So the expectations are low. The fees are low. We pay $35, and that buys the coffee and the occasional cookies. And so it really is a welcoming place where everybody's welcome. We value diversity. It's not there's no cliques. There's no groups within the shed. We're all equal, and that's kind of refreshing. And yeah, so that's kind of my answer. Punch, do you want to?
Yeah, I think it would be it's built on being informal. It's an activity-based socialization process. It's not. It doesn't have the structure that some other places have, and it's not face-to-face counseling process. We're not in that business. It's the process that we try to use is health by stealth, and which is low-key, shoulder-to-shoulder conversations that may lead to men admitting that they have a health issue that they don't understand, and someone that's in that group may have a suggestion. This is what happened to me. This is what there's lots of discussions about prostate cancer, colon cancer, diabetes, your heart issues, and obviously there's some that are related to depression and suicide. Those are all conditions that contribute to men dying early because they don't pay attention to them. 2 in 5 men will not make it to their 75th birthday because they ignore those conditions. And utilizing the health by stealth approach in sheds, we tend to address those and try to make sure that we're impacting that 2 in 5 men number. It's very important, but it's done on the low key, the health by stealth approach.
So who can join exactly, and what kind of commitment is required? I think you said no cost. So I was just wondering a little bit about the terms of commitment, who can join. And I know you added a lot on this, but just to clarify it for our listeners.
Well, my answer is that we at Men's Sheds Canada, we have a set of values. One of inclusivity, diversity, respect. So we don't tell a shed what to do, but we expect them to invite any man. Invite any man in the door, any man in the community. But with the expectation, we'll all respect each other because we have diversity. We have so much diversity in many of our sheds. We're not all the same, so we need to respect that diversity, respect each other's opinions, be respectful of each other. That's the major commitment. We certainly invite men to show up weekly or however the particular shed meets. There's a necessity that we take care of each other. So often we'll sign a form a waiver saying, well, we will not sue the shed. But really what that means is I will take care of myself. I will not use a power tool until I'm trained on it. I won't work by myself. I won't do dangerous things. I won't endanger anybody else. So that's the expectation. But other than that, any man's welcome to walk in, have a coffee, see what we're about, and maybe come back. And then eventually sign up as a member and commit to taking care of myself and pay the $25 or $35 membership fee. That's entirely voluntary. Any man can walk in the door, try us out. That walk-in door the first time is the biggest step towards finding out what we're about and finding out we're pretty darn normal bunch of guys who happen to live nearby and didn't know each other before, and now we do. Yeah. And so that's it. Every shed is autonomous, and they set their own kind of rules of engagement, but every man is welcome.
Amazing. I know we touched on it, the impact of men's sheds and that it has on individuals and it has on communities. And we did share some stories today, but I was wondering if there are any other stories that are in your heart that you would like to share, Punch or Brian. I would love to know if there's anything that stands out for you that maybe you can share with our listeners.
I guess we could tell you the story of one of the fellows that was referred to the shed downtown in Edmonton. He had been a carpenter his whole life. He had grown up in foster care, but he'd been a carpenter his whole life. And when he finally retired, he hit the wall as far as, okay, what am I going to do now? And he kind of went in the tank for 2 or 3 years. And finally, a social worker at Sage, when he came in for coffee, and he just told her his story. And she said, you need to go to the men's shed downstairs. You need to go and get involved with those guys. Well, he joined the shed. It did change his life, but it changed their lives, all the lives in the group, because they didn't have a workshop, and he was a carpenter. Well, he within a couple of weeks, he had developed a whole set of tiny tools, and he started to show the guys how they could build things with these tiny tools. And they built birdhouses, and they built bee homes. They did all kinds of things that they could do at the table. And he felt so great because he was contributing to them. He was helping them have a better experience in the shed. And it was when he passed away a couple years later, the social workers and psychologists told the shed that it had changed his life. It had made his last few years really incredible. And so they made a donation to the shed because they saw the significance of it. So, yeah, there's all kinds of stories like that where guys have success in the shed. And it can be from the work they do. It can be from the people they talk to and share experiences shoulder to shoulder. So,
yeah, I'll just leap on that Punch has initiated the collection of a whole bunch of stories. Each one is wonderful. A lot about the impact on the men, but a lot about the impact on their families or the communities. And I know that Punch is building some displays. Maybe he's going to put a book together. So that's a really valuable initiative because it really the stories are so impactful. And at Men's Sheds Canada, we put together a video on stories. You can look us up, mensshedscanada.ca. It's all one word, mensshedscanada.ca. And the very first thing you'll see is a video that you can click on about the impact on, I think, a number of men's lives. It's huge. I often hear stories. This saved my life. I didn't have anywhere to go, and now I do. And now I'm giving back. And the joy that you see in their faces. So we are focused on collecting lots more stories about the impact of sheds, not only on themselves, but on their families and on their communities. And we celebrate that on International Men's Day every November 17th. We did it last year. We're going to do it again this year, because the impact of men's sheds is far bigger than on us individuals. It's a spreading thing. And so we celebrate that, and tons of stories we have. So go to our website, find out more.
Yeah, please do, everybody. And I think an anthology, like a book with all the different stories and accounts, that would be so powerful. I would love to purchase that. So just closing off on our last question here, I was wondering if somebody was interested in starting or joining a men's shed, what resources are available? Where can they begin?
Well, I'm going to jump in ahead of Brian. Men's Shed Canada has a fantastic component in their website, and you can go to that. If you go to menshedscanada.ca or .org, you'll find a startup link in there, and it is very detailed set of resources and steps in terms that you can follow. A similar resource is available on the Alberta Men's Sheds website, and it has a section in it on Start a Shed. So if you can get to those two things, you will have some significant tools. And if you get stumped, you can always contact Brian or I, and we'll make sure that we've left you with our email addresses so that you individuals can get in touch with us anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add to that whether you're in, I believe we're talking to folks mostly on the prairies, whether you're in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even Ontario, if you go to menshedscanada.ca, and there's a place to ask a question. It's called info@menshedscanada.ca. Ask a question. Just it'll come to me. Frankly, it'll come to me and a few others, but we'll get back to you. We do offer the grants, but I also offer one-to-one feedback by email or on a Zoom session. Let's talk about how easy it is to start a men's shed. It takes two guys and a good idea, and we can start a men's shed, and I'll help you do it. And we have grants. We have grants to help you do that. We really want to help you get the ball rolling in your community. I just did visits to Saskatchewan, where I've got something like 8 different communities, 8, however many that is, want to start a men's shed. And we did a little bit of a media campaign. I went and did a visit, and they said, wow, why haven't we heard of this before? Well, that's 8. But guess what? There's 800 communities in Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Ontario and Alberta. So if it comes to Alberta, I'll be diverting it to, I'll be answering the question and including Punch in my email. And in Manitoba, we've got a provincial organization. In Saskatchewan, we'd love to build one. But the point is, any one man or one woman can get a shed started, and we're here to help. That's my job.
Perfect. All right. I love it. I love that there's so much community engagement, willingness, excitement. This is great. I think that, it has saved so many lives, and just building that connection and letting people know that they're not alone. And you know what, shoulder to shoulder, men can connect. And I really appreciate both of you being here today. So we will be sure to post your website with our links. And if everybody is, if you're watching this on Facebook, please do share. If you're watching it on YouTube, please do the same. If you're watching it after the fact, you'll definitely have the links attached to this podcast. So thank you, Brian and Punch. Please stay on the line. I would like to thank you personally after the show. And we are super, super excited to have had you here today. I feel very lucky to have met both of you, and truly do hope we can partner in the future. And please, everybody, share Stigma-Free Voices on Spotify. Check out stigmafreementalhealth.com. And everyone, have a lovely day. Have a lovely rest of your week. And thank you so much. And let's live stigma-free. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.